All right, guys. So today we're going to be working on lesson 41, finding a percent of a number. So if you don't have your book open already, make sure you have your 7-6 math book. Open up your book to page 216 so you can follow along with me. Okay, so a couple new concepts here. Some of this will be review, some of it will be new. So let's start with example 1 on page 217. So example 1 says write 15% in decimal form. Write 15% in decimal form. Okay, so 15%, we need to write that first as a fraction. So I can write that as 15 over 100. Now, why is it over 100? Well, the 5 ends in the hundredths place. So another way of writing this, so this would be percent form, that 15%. We have 15 over 100, that's fraction form. And then in decimal form, we'd have 0.15 or 15 hundredths. Now, if I had another example similar to this, I would have, let's try out 25%. So writing that in fraction form, I would write it as 25 over 100. And then writing it in decimal form, I would write it as 0.25 or 25 hundredths, because that 5 is ending in the hundredths place. So 25% is percent form, 25 over 100 is the fraction form, and 0.25 is the decimal form. So that's example 1. Example 2 says write 75% as a reduced fraction. So sometimes, example 2, still on page 217. So sometimes you'll have a percent, so 75%, writing that as a fraction. That's just going to be 75 over 100, right? So with this one, we're going to be able to reduce this fraction. So we need to find what goes into both 75 and 100, Well, off the top of my head, I know that 5 goes into 75, and then 5 also goes into 100. I also know 25 goes into both of those numbers, but we're just going to start with 5. So 75. Sorry about that. Had some students run over here. Okay, so 75 divided by 5. So 5 goes into 7 one time. 7 minus 5 is 2. Bring down my 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. And I'm going to get a remainder of 0 because 25 minus 25 is 0. So my numerator, or my top number, is going to be 15. 100 divided by 5. 5 goes into 1 0 times. 5 goes into 10 twice. And then 5 goes into 0 0 times. So I have 15 over 20. Now, I know I can reduce this one more time because both numbers, 15 and 20, end in either 5 or 0. So that means they're both divisible by 5. So we'll divide both by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So 3/4 would be my answer for this one. Oops. Go away. 3/4. So that would be my answer for example 2, is writing 75 over 100 or 75% as a reduced fraction. So 3/4 would be my answer there. All right. Let's look at another one similar to that. So let's say I have 10 over 12, 10 over 12. So both those numbers are divisible by 2. So let's divide both top number and bottom number by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 5/6 would be my reduced fraction there. Now, how do I know they're both divisible by 2? Both 10 and 12 are even numbers. All right. Let's look at example 3 on page 217. Example 3. What number is 75% of 20? 75% of 20. So this is where you can use one of these handy guys. So in Google Classroom, you'll see that there is that math tools section, and I have this copied in there so you guys can use this. So of, that keyword of right there, anytime you're going to use 75% of 20, when you're replacing the word of, you're going to be doing multiplication. Multiplication. So to replace of, you're always going to be multiplying. All right. So 75% of 20. So first things first, we have to turn that percent into a fraction. So I have 75 over 100. I need to turn that into a reduced fraction. We just did that and we found out that 75 over 100 can be reduced to 3/4. So 3/4 times 20. 3/4 times 20. I'm going to get rid of this guy right here, clean it up a little bit. So 3/4 times 20. A couple ways of doing this. I would personally write 20 as a fraction. So in doing that, I would write 20 over 1. And now I have 3/4 times 20 over 1. So multiplying straight across, 3 times 20 and 4 times 1. 3 times 20 is going to be, so 3 times 2 is 6. Add that 0 in there. I have 60. 4 times 1 is 4. And I have 60 over 4 left over. So I need to turn that into a mixed number. So I'm going to take 60. So my top number, that top number right there, whoops. That top number 60 and divide it by 4. Because remember, the fraction bar is also known as a division bar. All right, so let's do 60 divided by 4. Clear my screen to get a little bit more space. 60 divided by 4. So 4 goes into 6 once. 6 minus 4 is going to be 2. Bring down my 0. And 4 goes into 20 5 times. All right, remainder of 0. So my answer here, 75% of 20 would be 15. All right. So a lot of that should be review right there. Example 1, example 2, and example 3 on page 217. So let's look at example 4, do a little bit of application problems here with example 4 and example 5 on page 218. So with example 4, I have Jamal correctly answered 80% of 25 questions. 80% of 25. How many questions did he answer correctly? So if he correctly answered 80% of those 25 questions, there's our key word there again, and that key word is of. What do I need to change that of into multiplication. Again, anytime you see the word of, you're going to be replacing that with multiplication. First step, change that 80% into a fraction. So I'd write that as 80 over 100. Whenever you're writing a percent as a fraction, just write whatever that number is over 100. So 80 over 100 times 25. Now, what step did I forget here? I forgot to reduce the 80 over 100 first. So let's go ahead and do that. So 80 over 100. One thing that I noticed, both those numbers end with a 0. So I know that 2 goes into them because it's an even number. 5 will go into both of them because they both end in a 0. And then 10 will also go into both those numbers because they both end in 0. So let's divide that by the bigger common factor of 10. 80 divided by 10 is 8. 10 divided by 10, or 100 divided by 10 is 10. I'm just taking off a 0 from both the 80 and that 100, and I get 8/10. Kind of a shortcut there. Now, am I done? No. Both 8 and 10 are both even numbers, so let's divide both those by 2. I have 8 divided by 2, which is 4. 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So I have 4/5. I turn that 80% into a fraction. All right, so I'm going to erase some of this here. 4/5. So let's write my 4/5 right below that 80%. 4/5 times 25. Now I'm going to write 25 as a fraction. And by doing that, I'm just going to write 25 over 1. 25 over 1. Now, the last time I went and did this, I took my top two numbers, multiplied them together, 25 times 4 and 5 times 1. 25 times 4, I'm going to do that off to the side here. Or I could use, no, I guess I can't use my multiplication table. It doesn't go up that high. 25 times 4. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. So I have 100 over 5. 100 over 5. Now I need to simplify that. So I need to take my top number, which is 100, and divide it by 5. 100 divided by 5. So let's do that here on a new fresh page. 100 divided by 5. Now 5 goes into 1, 0 times. 5 goes into 10 twice. 5 times 2 is 10. So I'll write that right here. 10 minus 10 is 0. Bring down my other 0. 5 goes into 0, 0 times. So I'll write up that 0 up there. So my answer there for 80% of the 25 questions, they got 20 questions correct. 20 of those questions were correct. Let's see here. Okay. That's going to be very similar when I'm looking through some of your homework problems. That's going to be very similar to M and N, and I'll show you why M and N. So for those two problems there, it says 10% of 350. 10%, got my of 350, but it says mentally find 10% of 350. Mentally find 10% of 350. So I'm not going to make you do it, use mental math there. You can just go ahead and find it the normal way. So turning that 10% into a fraction, writing 10 over 100, simplifying, and then take that simplified fraction, multiply it by 350 over 1. Same thing there with letter N. You do not need to turn those into, do it with mental math. But if you want to, you can. Okay, last example, example 5. And the questions that are very similar to example 5 are pretty much letter P. I guess M, N, O, and Q are all very similar to example 4. And then letter P is very similar to example 5. So let's look at example 5. We have sales tax. The sales tax rate was 6%. The sales tax rate was 6%. Find the tax on a $12 purchase, then find the total price including the tax. So first off, we need to find how much tax is 6% of $12. 6% of $12. Again, same exact process here with example 5 and letter O in your homework. 6% of $12. So I'm just going to write that $12 as just 12. That's what I would do with the $15 in example O as well. So 6% of 12, let's turn that percent into a fraction first. So I'd write my number 6 over 100. Then I need to simplify. Both the numbers are even numbers, so they are divisible by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 100 divided by 2 is 50. 50 is not divisible by 3, so I am done. So I have 3 over 50 of, so I'm multiplying. And then I had, what was it? $12. So 12 over 1. So 3 over 50 times 12 over 1. Let's multiply straight across. 3 times 12 is going to be 36. And then 50 times 1 is just going to be 50. Then we need to take that 36 over 50 and simplify. And okay, so I realized as I'm going through this problem that I'm doing it the harder way. So I'm going to show you guys actually an easier way of doing it. So scratch what I said, let's restart example 5. I could edit the video, but I'm not going to. Okay, back to example 5, let's redo it. Same thing with, same process for letter O. So 6% of $12, instead of turning that percent into a fraction, we're going to turn it into a decimal. That's actually going to be the easier method this time. 6% of $12, so of 12. So turning 6% into a decimal is going to be 0.06. 0.06 of, so multiply by 12. So now I need to take 12 times 0.06. So this is something that we were working on in last lesson as well. So let's go ahead and do that. My method, I would count how many decimal places I have, which is 2. So I'm going to write off to the side 2 places. And then I'm just going to take 6 times 12. 6 times 11 is 66. Plus 6 more is going to be 72. So my answer, is it 72? No, it's not, because I need to move my decimal 2 places. So I'm going to do that. Move it 1, 2 times. So there's my decimal. Add my 0, add my $sign, and that's going to be 72 cents is going to be how much it's going to cost with tax. So the part of the question that says find the tax, so that's how much tax it is, but it wants to then know find the total price including tax. Find the total price including the tax, and that's what it wants you to do on letter O as well. So what do I need to do? I need to add that 72 cents plus $12. So my answer there is going to be $12 and 72 cents. Whoops. Eraser. $12.72. All right. So same process there with 8%, turn that into a decimal, 0.08 times 15. You'll be good. All right. So you guys are doing A through Q. Remember, I changed it from 1 to 29 odd to 1 through 19 odd. So shortening up that lesson a little bit, still do all the letters. All right. Other than that, go ahead and start working on the lesson. If you have any questions, please email me or put a message on Google Classroom. All right. Bye, guys.